Thank you for listening to this PodcastOne production. Available on Apple Podcasts and PodcastOne.
This episode of Steve Austin Show is brought to you free today by our friends at BetOnline.ag. The NFL is in full swing and the action is fast and furious. Right now is a great time to get in on the tremendous sports betting odds in the NFL and college football. Get in the mix at BetOnline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne for your 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook experts and exclusive partner of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
He started in a small town in Texas. Worked his ass off to become one of the most famous wrestlers of all time.
We're going to take care of business tonight, and that's the bottom line.
And now he's dominating the world of on-demand audio. And he's doing it for the working man.
This is a damn good outlet for me to spew the bullshit off my brain.
Yeah! This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
Hey, welcome to another classic episode of the Steve Austin Show. Every week, we are bringing out some of the most requested episodes of the podcast from behind the archives. We have another great one for you this week, and here's my producer, Sean, to tell you all about it.
Stand back, Steve. There's a hurricane coming through. That's right. It's producer Sean on a classic episode of the Steve Austin Show with episode number 431, The Hurricane, Shane Helms. Original air date, May 23rd, 2017. This is actually a few weeks after the Shane McMahon interview. I just happened to type in Shane when looking for the classic episodes, and these both came up, and I was like, oh, I hadn't done those. And here we are with another Shane on the Steve Austin Show. This one's pretty good, though. We get together with Shane talking about his most recent farming venture. He's working on some agriculture. I was trying to think of the word, agriculture. And he's doing well at it, and he's very happy with it. They also talk about what defines in-ring gaga, which you've probably heard on the podcast before and a few other wrestling podcasts, but they do discuss what exactly is gaga, as well as Jinder Mahal. Jinder Mahal just won his WWE Championship around the time of this taping, so they do talk about that a little bit, as well as the moods of Vince McMahon and when it's best to ask him for things, and also a big discussion on heels and a Star Wars analogy that is very accurate. So you guys are going to dig this episode with the hurricane here on the Steve Austin Show. This day in Steve Austin history, it is September 19th. We only have a few things to talk about today. Starting off in 1992 for WCW in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, WCW World Champion Ron Simmons defeated stunning Steve Austin. Don't know if that was an actual title match, but that may as well have been. And if you were in attendance, the first 2,000 kids received a free WCW hip pouch, or as they're better known as, fanny packs. So if you did get one, write into the show. Questions at steveaustonshow.com. I'm certain Steve will love to hear about that. Also in 1998, in New Orleans, Louisiana, it's WWF World Champion Stone Cold Steve Austin defeating The Undertaker, Kane, and Mankind in a 4-man match. I get my information from the history of WWE.com. Thanks for listening, folks, and thanks for checking out Straight Up Steve Austin on the USA Network. The season finale just wrapped up this past week, and I know Steve is very grateful for y'all for checking that out. And hopefully we'll see a season 2 of Straight Up Steve Austin in the near future. But thanks for being with us, and we'll come right back with The Hurricane on the Steve Austin Show.
Competition in the NFL and college football scene is continuing to heat up with some huge games this weekend that you're not going to want to miss. On top of that, right now is a great time to get in on all the sports betting action. Here's what we got this weekend in college football. It's the University of Florida taking on Tennessee. Auburn squaring off against the Aggies of Texas A&M. Notre Dame versus the University of Georgia. And a big clash with Utah up against USC. Visit our good friends and exclusive partner at PodcastOne, BetOnline.ag, to take advantage of the best bonuses in the business. Sign up today for a free account at BetOnline.ag and use the promo code PodcastOne to receive a 50% welcome bonus. That's BetOnline.ag, your online sportsbook expert and exclusive partner of PodcastOne Sportsnet.
This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
Shane Helms, what's the word on the street down there in North Carolina?
Man, I heard there's a hurricane coming down here, man. But, I think it's all pretty calm and cool and collected these days. So we're doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh, they said there's an earthquake coming through Cali. Ain't got here yet. There's been a couple in the past, but they said there's a big one on the way too. So I'm kind of looking forward to that one. Not looking forward to it. Looking forward to it not happening. So I'm kind of like a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs out here in Cali, man. I can handle hurricanes and tornadoes with all due respect, but them earthquakes kind of rattle me up a little bit.
Have you ever been through one before?
No, just a little one. The ones I've been through, because I live in Marina Del Rey. I think we live on something that's called like the alluvial plain or whatever, like a big bunch of jello, to put it in basic perspective. So the few little ones that we've had, it feels like something just it feels like someone just drove their car into the side of the house. It's just like boom, and then it stops. Now, my wife was in that big one that happened a few years back. I mean, that Mac Daddy one, and she wouldn't sleep in her house for I think 4 or 5 days because she just thought the thing was going to fall down. So, I don't know, dude. That's the only thing about Cali that bothers me, that and the traffic. Hey, what are you up to now? What are you doing?
I was actually in one when I was doing that Ready to Rumble movie. So this was back in '99, and I was staying in it was in between Hollywood and Burbank. And I think the address was actually a Burbank address. Warner Brothers Studios had these apartments over there. I think it was the Oakwood Apartments. And so that's where they were putting me up at. And I ain't never been, obviously, in North Carolina, we don't have earthquakes, so I didn't know what was happening. But I woke up in the middle of the night, and of course, everything was shaking. And at first, I had some people above me that were pretty loud sometimes, and I thought it was just them being loud. And then everything's shaking, so I don't know what to do. But I just assumed get the hell out. So I ran out. It's 3 a.m. I'm outside in my damn underwear. Nobody else even comes out. Nobody else, because they've been there for, I guess, forever. So they were used to it or whatever. Nobody else even came out. Nobody else even gave a shit. I was like, all right. So I go back in. And I turn on the TV, and the news don't even say anything about it. I'm like, damn, they're dreaming that shit? And so I thought I was dreaming. But I went back to sleep, and the next day I woke up, and it was on the news that I guess it actually hit somewhere near Vegas with that one. And it was pretty big where it hit, and the LA area just got the aftershocks. But, yeah, so that was my little earthquake story. But I ran outside in my damn drawers. And I'm just out there all by myself, too, going, okay.
No, man, we ain't had one in a while, but according to the papers that I always read, there's supposed to be a big one heading this way, but I don't know. I just kind of hope it doesn't happen while I'm here. It seems like every time I'm gone, my wife is here by herself, and then she'll always tell me about it. It's like the bigger ones happen when she's here by herself. But, hey, dude, what have you been up to lately? What are you doing now? Are you retired?
No, man, I'm back in the ring. I just did a show in Georgia this past weekend. I was over in Germany the weekend before. With TNA, I do. I'm an agent at TNA. That's what I was.
That's right.
To do that. But every now and then, I got cast. I should say, I'm a manager. A heel manager for some of the young guys in the X division. And in those matches, I'll get involved. Because I'm still active. So it's not necessarily a Paul Heyman type manager or anything like that. I'll actually get to go and take my lumps. We just had a big Ultimate X match, and I took, a bump that's probably too big for somebody at my age to be taking anymore. So, and it might be the last time I take that particular bump. So, yeah, I'm still rocking and rolling, man, having fun. But I got me a farm now, too, here in North Carolina, and I've been planting some shit this year. So that's work. That is some hard-ass work.
So what are you trying to grow out there?
Fun. We got a little bit of everything, man. We got potatoes, onions, snap peas, snap beans, okra, cucumbers. We got about me and my lady are working on it. So we got I think it's like 18 different rows. It's interesting to see it happen. But I knew it was hard work, because I know farmers, and my grandparents had a farm, and I spent a lot of time there when I was a kid, but I didn't do any work on it. But there's a newfound respect. You learn where the term redneck actually comes from, because that sun whoops your ass. That's where the term comes from. You could tell the people that worked outside because the sun burnt their damn neck up. And that'll wear you out. That's a different kind of fatigue.
What made you decide to haul off and start farming?
Just because, me and my woman, we got 2 kids. We're going to be in it for the long haul. I had a couple homes, but she had some land. So we just consolidating everything, and moved to the farm. And the farm was her family farm. So it's about 120 acres altogether. So just prepare for life after wrestling is, in terms of I don't know how many years I got as far as bumping goes, but that card's filling up pretty good. That bump card's filling up. So just preparing for life after wrestling, and being out here, it's more room for the kids to play, and I get to spend time with them. And also, we bought a house for my dad right across the street, so we got him out here too. So him and his wife can spend time with the grandkids and everything. So, just try to be smart with the money. I got the couple of other houses. I got them on the market now. Just going to get rid of them and put everything in this little big. And this is where I'm going to hope to spend the rest of my days.
Yeah, man, what kind of style are you able to work in the ring these days? Because I thought you were pretty beat up from that motorcycle crash and everything that you put your body through.
Yeah, I was, but I came back from that. I can't do long sprints, I'm not going to do a 100-yard dash. But in the terms of being in the ring, you really can't tell, how bad my foot was messed up. I mean, when people see me, that's what I hear all the time. It's like, man, I didn't you can't tell that you're hurt at all when you're out there. But it's one of those deals, too, kind of like Ozzy Osbourne. When I come off stage, I go, it hurts more now than it used to. When I'm out there, I feel good. The adrenaline's pumping. I'm sure you know the feeling. When you're in the ring and that's what you love doing, that's why I feel most at home. That's why I'm most comfortable. But it just, it hurts a little bit more than it used to. But I can still rock and roll.
How old are you now?
I'll be 43 in July.
So how long can you keep doing this?
I think 45 might be a good stopping point. I feel good right now. Like I said, I've been working a couple of weekends in a row, and I think what happened too is when you take time off and you do a match once a month or once every 2 months, that shit hurts because you're not tough anymore. You're not taking that constant grind. You kind of need the grind to stay tough a little bit. That's why some of the shows I'm doing lately is just to get ring time, because I think I got one more good little push and I'm going to do one good farewell tour and we'll see how it goes from there,
Yeah, but I call that ring shape. I mean, not only with just respect to lungs, because you got to get your cardio up, because you can get on a elliptical, you can get on a treadmill, a bicycle, you can do anything, and you can improve your cardio. But until you get in the ring, start taking bumps, punching, kicking somebody, going through some high spots, trying to work a body part with some tension, it's a whole other thing. But then also on the other side of that, like you said, it's just ring shape or bump shape. Man, if you ain't taking bumps, all of a sudden you start taking bumps that you ain't been used to taking. I mean, your body's sore as hell because you're not acclimated to it. So it's kind of like a two-stage thing to be in ring condition. It's cardio one, but it's just bumps. Your body gets you. It's just like starting in my football playing days. Do those first few two-a-days, you feel like hell. But then all of a sudden your body's used to taking all those hits, and then you just keep going down the road.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly like that.
So would you say that these days you're working smarter, not harder? I mean, are you still, would you say your psychology has improved because you're trying not to lean on your body so much while giving the crowd everything that they want from you?
Yeah. My psychology has definitely improved. And I'm also, too, on indie shows, I have the luxury of, especially on the indie show, they already know me, so I'm already over to an extent, so I don't have to go out there and get over or prove anything. And especially with that Hurricane character, and that's what I do most of the time anyway, they want to see the Gaga. And that was something I dealt with in my career. That's what they want to see, and that's why so much of that character developed like that, Because, Steve, I would get all the time, when I was Sugar Shane, I was this little wrestling machine that did 1,000 moves a match. And once WWE asked me to do that Hurricane character and it started to develop, the crowd just wasn't reacting to that style anymore because I was in that character. They just didn't want to see the Hurricane wrestle like that. They wanted to see that pose and the silly thumbs up and the eye poke and the choke slam and all the weird shit. They just didn't want to see that character wrestle like Sugar Shane did. So I kind of had to develop a little Hurricane style. And that's what the people like, But I still work hard, I take my bumps. I don't go out there and put, if I can't go out there and bump, if I don't feel I can go out there and go, that's when I'll hang it up. If I can't be proud of what I'm doing out there, that's when I'll stop.
So is there a part of you? Is there a part of you that likes the Sugar Shane style better, or a part that likes the Hurricane? Like, which one do you want to play?
The Sugar Shane was that's how more I wanted to be. What I was when I had that heel run as Gregory Helms, 2005, 2006, that was my best body of work in terms of in ring, what I was doing in there. That's when I was the best. That's who I really was. But, that style just didn't work with that Hurricane character. It was a disconnect for somebody that's so crazy that he thinks he's a superhero to go out there and wrestle that good. The people didn't get into it as much. And Pat Patterson, who I'm pretty sure, you respect what he says as an agent. He's like, listen to the people. Why they react to keep, and if they're not, then don't do it no more. So, yeah, I just, it was weird. The hurricane thing was a little bit more difficult than people realized, because I kind of had to wrestle down, and then you deal with those criticisms. But that's what the people wanted. It's like Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks will go do a serious movie, and then he'll go do a comedy, and it's the same guy, but he's just having to perform two different ways, and that's what I had to do with that character. But to stick to your question, how I wrestled as Gregory Helms in ring, that was my best work. Was it as profitable as the Hurricane? Not even.
Hey man, and speaking about the Gaga, it was funny when you brought that word up, because I wasn't going to throw it out there, but you did. So let's run with it for a second. Explain to people what the Gaga is, because I know the wrestling fan's going to understand. But what's the Gaga?
When you throw some comedy out there, when you make people laugh, it's comic relief is. It's an important element in storytelling to have comic relief. You can't be serious. You can't be just deadly serious all throughout a movie. You need a break. You need a breather. Something that's more character related. When myself at 200 pounds would go and try to choke slam Big Show, who at the time was 500 pounds, and the people start laughing their ass off. When I'm in that Rumble and I go in there and try to double choke slam Stone Cold Steve Austin and Triple H, the two biggest stars in the business at the time, and I do it and I try with as much conviction as I got, because I know I can do it, and people laughing their ass off. That's what the Gaga is.
But also, also the Gaga would be, some of the old standard stuff, like, maybe test of strength, yay boo.
Yeah.
To your point, many times it's comedy, but sometimes it's not always comedy. It's just some of the old shtick that you're able to get away with in some of the towns.
Yeah, the Tennessee two-step type shit you used to see.
Hey, well, speaking of Gaga, what did you think about the match between it's Fandango and Tyler Breeze versus the Uso? Did you see that?
Yeah, that was I think of course they did a lot of ha Gaga in there too, and that's character driven, and sometimes that can be weird to do in the middle of a match. But for me, whenever I do that, I would always front load any comedy ha Gaga spots. I would always do those in the beginning. Because once we get into the meat of the match and you start punching me in the face, well, then it's not funny anymore. And now I got to fight. So that's how I always handled situations like that. And they kind of seem to do that a little bit. And when they got into the match and with all the false finishes at the end, the crowd seemed to really enjoy it. What do you think?
To me, it's always funny in the different ways that you can hook a crowd, because so a lot of people, you watch that and think, God dang, man, they just set the business back 10 years. That's what we would say, like in a locker room. But, it ends up, by the time that match was over, they had that crowd pretty much hook, line, and sinker. So it worked to hook them in. The crowd was buying it. But when I first started watching it go down, I was like, first of all, I thought Tim Conway. And then when Tyler comes out in the dress, I'm thinking Carol Burnett. And so I'm like, what in the hell is going on here? And me, dude, I'm kind of into more serious aspects. And unless it's just straight up, kind of, regular guy. So when they came in with the ha-ha, and one time when he started, when he tripped one of the Usos, and then he put the mop in his face, the mop was beating him up. And so I was like, God dang, man. But again, it was very entertaining, but you can only do that in so many times and get away with it. I thought they was able to get away with it. Ended up crowd buying into the match, so they hooked them with it. But it's just always interesting to see. Had they not been in Chicago, which is like a premier wrestling town, as you know, kind of a stronghold for WWE, and those people are rabid wrestling fans. It was interesting that they bought it, and two, interesting that they had endorsed it. And the crowd was with it on the back end. But as I was watching it go down, man, I was really scratching my head to see, how the crowd was going to take this. And they bought it.
Mm-hmm. So those type of comedy spots, you got to be really selective in. And to your point, you're exactly right with Chicago. I was talking today with the old Disco Inferno on a podcast that we do with Conan, and talking about how Chicago, for me in WWE, that was the hottest town. You know, and
Absolutely.
I think across the board, that was the crowd that always they were there and they were live and didn't hijack the show. I mean, they would chant whatever they wanted, but they chanted as a part of the show. They weren't trying to really take away from anything. And so that they definitely benefited off that crowd. But I think they were smart about keeping it in the beginning. And then, like I said earlier, once we get serious, we get serious. I mean, and that's when comedy that's when it can work. You know, you see that in the Spider-Man movie. He's out there being funny, but once the heel starts kicking his ass, well, okay, now Spider-Man's going to fight again. You know, you don't really crack jokes when somebody's whooping your ass. That's when things aren't funny. But yeah, they got to, but they do have to be selective with it because that act can get old. You know, I was with Flair one time in Philly, and I started to do something funny, and Philly was kind of a heel town, you know, and Flair's Flair. And sometimes it's hard, you know, when he was a heel. And you know, you've seen it his last couple of years in WWE. It's hard to get people really to boo him at that point.
Right.
And this was with Evolution. It's just hard to boo Ric Flair. He could be out there just stabbing somebody with a knife, and there's going to be somebody wooing in the crowd. He's at that legendary status. And I started to do something like Marcus Pose or something, and I heard the crowd start to boo, and I was like, okay, no comedy in this one. You know, I'm gonna have to do his, you know, stay serious here. So you just got to be selective and got to be able to feel that crowd. And if they're starting to turn on it, be prepared to adapt to it.
Would Philly buy into the Hurricane, and also would Nassau Coliseum? Because a lot of times, man, when you was a babyface and just, God forbid, for some reason you was making your comeback at Nassau Coliseum, dude, I mean, especially if you was a white meat baby, chances are you was going to get booed out of the building, or the whatever pop you got was going to be about half of what it would be in a normal building. And that's not running the fans down. I mean, they're just a heel crowd. How did the Hurricane work in the heel towns? Did they embrace you and endorse you, or was it 50-50, flip a coin and just see what the reaction is?
They never turned on me, you know, so I always, I had more problems, and it wasn't problems that I created, but WWE on TV, especially, every time we went to Canada, they would make me wrestle a Canadian, like so many times.
Yeah.
And I think they just started because the Canadians, at least they wouldn't turn on me. Now they're going to be for their pro-Canadian crowd.
Right.
You know, they're going to be for their hometown, but at least they wouldn't turn on the Hurricane because that character still was beloved. So they wouldn't turn on me, but they were still, you know, the worst one I think ever. It was in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and me and Jericho are working, and he's the first Canadian on the show, and I don't think he'd ever even been there before. So it's his first time in Nova Scotia. First Canadian on the show, and he's trying everything. He's using the wrist tape to choke me. He's eye poking. He's low blowing. He's flipping off the crowd. They're Jericho the whole time. You know, they're not turning on him. It ain't going to happen. And we're fighting a good fight, you know. And the finish, if you remember Jericho's stuff, you know, he was going to put me in the Boston, what's he call it, Walls of Jericho?
Tamer. Yeah, Walls of Jericho.
Lion Tamer. And so, you know, I was going to do the thing where I valiantly fight to the ropes, and as I get 1 inch away, he's going to drag me out to the middle. But I'm the superhero, so I'm going to push up, and I'm going to fight valiantly to the ropes a second time, and he's going to drag me out to the middle. And that third time when he sinks it in, that's when I'm finally going to tap. Now, that's what's supposed to happen. But this crowd won't turn on him. They're pro Jericho. They're Y2J chants. They're all this and that. The second he put me in the Walls of Jericho, my ass was tapping. I said, the hell with this. Let's get out of here.
And you went ahead and tapped?
Yeah, I said, this is over. We're good. We got them. This is what they want. I mean, that's what they wanted. They wanted it, and there was no use to fight it. You know, sure, in the grand scheme of things, I might look a little tougher if I fought to the ropes twice, but that was what the people wanted that night. And it was one of those just feel it moments. And Chris was like, oh, that was the best call of the match.
To all the gamers out there, it's time to raise some hell and start some mayhem. Shoot and loot your way through a mayhem-fueled adventure in Borderlands 3 for the PC, Xbox One, and PS4. Borderlands 3 features all-new characters, over 1 billion guns and weapons, and a crazy amount of customization. Play solo or with your friends to take on insane enemies, score loads of loot, and save the galaxy from a fanatical threat. Mayhem is here. Borderlands 3, now available on PC, Xbox One, and PS4. Rated M for mature.
Don't miss the Jordan Harbinger Show on Podcast One.
You know, like if you're nervous or scared about a situation, instead of being like, nah, there's nothing to be scared about, nothing to be scared about. Oh, shit, there is.
This week, Jordan joins former Laker great and Oscar winner Kobe Bryant for an unforgettable conversation that you don't want to miss.
You own it, you give it a hug, you embrace it, and now what are you going to do about it?
Check out the Jordan Harbinger Show every week on Apple Podcasts and Podcast One.
This is Steve Austin Unleashed.
Hey, what's your thoughts on the business today?
I think it's completely different than what I grew up on. Not only just the way it's presented, but the way it's taken in by people, the way it's talked about by fans. Not 100% different, but maybe 70, 75% different.
So how would you describe the business when you broke in? Or when you were a kid watching it?
When I was a kid watching it, there was a lot of people that, the cat wasn't out of the bag yet about
right.
Not officially. I've always felt like, if you got any common sense, you can kind of look at pro wrestling and see what's going on.
Yes.
But the cat wasn't officially out of the bag. But now that the cat's out of the bag, it's like they're not going to believe nothing anyway, no matter what you do. And you can have two guys out there that really don't like each other and they're really beating the shit out of each other. And, fans are like, it's a work. So it's hard. It's a lot harder today to get people to buy any real heat. So it's definitely harder to get heat these days, especially because there's no real heels and because there isn't as much reward to being a heel anymore. The rewards go to the tweeners, the heels that you like and the heels that sell merch. There are no real people out there that I want to die like some of the heels I saw as a kid. Those are heels when I was growing up. When you talk about Jack and Jerry Briscoe, I hated them. I hated them so bad. I would have never bought their merch, and everybody hated them. And you see a guy like Buddy Jack Roberts, like I hated him so much I couldn't stand it, not understanding that that's what's supposed to happen. But in the modern era, it's, the baby faces make money and the tweener heels make money and the legit heels don't. And I think that's what hurts because your tweener heels get over if you have legit heels. If there's no legit heels, then there's nothing for them to be between. Just baby faces and half-ass heels. So you kind of need that person. It's like if you saw Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal Lecter was the tweener heel. He wasn't the heel. He was the tweener because he was so interesting and cool. Everybody liked him. Buffalo Bill was the guy you hated. He was the weirdo. So he was the real heel. And, of course, Jodie Foster was the babyface. But because of that, that made the movie more interesting. But we don't have any more real legit people that you just despise and you hate them. And if you do, they're not rewarded because they're not getting merch. So they're not considered, they're not selling merch. And the payday isn't good. The payday isn't good for those guys. They're very vital, but it's a lost art.
But how much heat do you think can still be gotten? Not as much as back in the old days?
No, not as much as back in the old days because there's no way to work the people because everything gets out. Everything gets out, all the backstage stuff. People are so interested in what goes on backstage. They're almost more interested in what goes on backstage than who beats who that night or who's going to be the champion that night. It was, so much talk was are they going to put the title on Jinder Mahal? That's what they say now. Is the company going to put the title on Jinder Mahal? Not is Randy Orton going to lose to Jinder Mahal or is Jinder Mahal going to become the champion? Is the company going to make him the champion? They talk about the backstage aspects of it more than actually the storylines that are being presented to them. It's a very strange thing because when I go to a movie, I was like, I just saw Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I didn't come out going, man, they gave Rourke there the good push. So-and-so didn't get as good as push that time. He didn't, he only had a 2-star performance. I don't come out of movies thinking like that, but wrestling is overly dissected by fans these days. It's hard to just sit back and watch. It seems, there's still some that sit there and enjoy it, but especially, what would be called the internet crowd, which it's kind of a loose term because everybody has the internet these days, but the ones that, really pound social media, they seem to be more interested and, engaged in some of the backstage stuff than what they're actually seeing.
You know what? I can watch it both ways, Shane. I can watch it like one. I spent 15 years in the business. I've been a lifelong fan. So, basically, man, I've got 40 some odd years in business, theoretically, or have been engaged in the business, whether as a fan or one of the boys. So I can watch it from an insider's perspective because I know how everything works mechanically, psychologically, heel baby aspect, and big picture. But I can also try to sit there and for as much as I can, try to, as they say, suspend my disbelief and just buy in and watch as a fan and try not to be critical. So I can watch both ways. I can think about the writing, but god dang, I just feel like it's really tough on the business because, like you said, everybody wants to talk about the backstage aspect of the writing aspect of it. Just like you said, Guardians of the Galaxy. No one's walking out of that thinking, man, they could have written Batista a couple more lines. I heard he was really funny, real good comedic timing. But I mean, theoretically, you come out and say, man, they could have gave Batista a few more lines, or they could have let so and so do this, but they don't. They watch the movie for what it is. They buy in, dude. It's Guardians of the Galaxy, and they totally get lost in it. And they're not worried about the writing. It's all about the movie and how the movie was presented. So, with wrestling, people just refuse to do this. Like watching Walking Dead. I'm not sitting there thinking, God dang, man, Rick's got to do this, or I'm mad at Rick because he didn't do this for writing. I'm watching it for what happens, but people don't seem to be able to watch wrestling for what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And I hear talk about ratings in wrestling more than any other show that exists. I rarely see any other and I'm a TV junkie and I'm a movie junkie. I rarely see that where a genre of fans are just obsessed with ratings like they seem to be with pro wrestling. And I get that it's a important thing, especially dealing with commercials and advertising and all of that. But it's such a vague unit of measurement these days with all the different ways that you can actually get the technology, where you get it on tablets and different things and YouTube and all this type of shit. So ratings are just a lot different now. They mean a lot different things now than what they used to, but just how fans talk about it. Like, I don't see that with any other anything, not really. You'll see it sparingly, of course, if something does great. I know Walking Dead a couple of seasons ago had like some monster rating, then it was everywhere how good it did. But on the weekly basis, how ratings are talked about, I see it more with wrestling than anything. Like, fans are just blown away by that, and to them that's a measurement of how good the show is, when that's not true at all. I mean, it's definitely not true with how good the show is. Twilight did way better business than Pulp Fiction. There will never be a day in my life when I think that Twilight was better than Pulp Fiction. But that's just how it. People like Dancing with the Stars. That's supposed to be like this monstrous hit. I don't know anybody that watches it, and I don't know why you would. I don't know why you would watch Dancing with the Stars. I think you watch it one time, you go, okay, I get this, and then I'd be done. I think I watched Jericho, and I watched clips of Carlton when he did the Carlton dance on there. I forget that guy's name, from the Fresh Prince. He was on there one season, and he finally broke down and did the Carlton dance on the Fresh. Other than that, like, I don't know anybody that watches it or why they would, but it was obviously a hit. It's weird what takes off.
Well, do you still watch Monday Night Raw and SmackDown both?
Yeah, pretty much. I'll have to. One of them is usually one or the other. I'll watch live, and then I'll watch on DVR. With the woman. She gets wrestled out pretty quick in terms of watching wrestling. So I'll try to watch it during the day when she's at work. But I stay up to date on pretty much everything. I feel like that's important. I try to stay up with Ring of Honor. I watch the New Japan stuff. Still being active in the business. And when I meet younger guys that don't watch the shows, I'm almost blown away by that sometimes. Like, yeah, I don't really watch. I'm like, so you want to be in that company, but you're not watching it? Like, I never really get that at all, but I try to stay up to date.
Okay, so earlier you said something about the presentation of the product, because that has changed. Well, what are your thoughts on the way it's presented? And let's speak about Raw, because I think Raw and SmackDown are presented differently.
Yeah, SmackDown, but historically SmackDown was the wrestling show, even back in the original draft days. And of course you were there. I'm not telling you nothing, but when it got even throughout the years, SmackDown was more the wrestling show, and Raw was more the spectacle. And that part still is kind of there, but I don't think the divide is as big as it used to be. There's still a lot of importance on SmackDown, but I think Raw will always be the flagship show. It's always going to be Vince's baby, and it's always going to be presented as such. From a production standpoint, WWE just keeps getting better and better, and that's where they blow everybody away. I'm really proud of some of the stuff TNA does, but when you flip through the channels, that production just isn't there. Well, Impact now it's called. And you can tell just by the definition of the camera, the channel might not be high def, but when you see, WWE and this bright lights and just these beautiful camera scenes and stuff like that, it's presented as a big budget movie. It's Guardians of the Galaxy.
Well, from a standpoint of production, yeah, it's second to none. But just as far as presentation, to me, just as far as like the Attitude Era, man, I don't live in the Attitude Era. That was gone a long time ago. But people always email me clips from back in the day to my show address, and so I watch these clips. And, one of the things they sent me was the open to the old Monday Night Raw, and this is right during the Monday Night Wars when we was doing head-to-head with Nitro, and man, they boom, 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 those damn, those explosions that would go down both sides of the ramp to the ring, and boy, all of a sudden you get that live crowd, and Jim Ross is yelling in the background, and dude, you knew that anything was on and that anything could happen, and so now when I watch it, it's just kind of toned down a little bit, and it just doesn't seem as spontaneous. And I don't want to go beat a dead horse because people talk about that all the time. But, back in, Jim Ross would come out there and it's almost like a shoot. And so now it's like, I guess we were doing it back then, but it just seems like almost every single show opens with that interview or that talking segment. I know Vince always talks about setting a hook, but god dang, wouldn't it be cool if you just roll into a Monday Night Raw and bam, right out of the gate, ding, 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 making a way to the ring, or this first match or something like that. Start off with a dang wrestling match, then have the promo segment and set the hook for the rest of the show. But I don't know, I just think a switcheroo doing something different would be a breath of fresh air.
I think part of the reason behind that is, and it was something to do with, looking at studies and numbers and quarter hours and stuff like that. Whenever you had somebody out talking in the beginning, the quarter hour, they always held the audience from flipping channels into that second quarter. That's part of why that is. So with Impact, we've actually done that recently where we start off right with a match. We start off with two guys fighting in the crowd and made their way to the ring, trying to change that formula up a little bit. And people seem to like it, but there's not been this huge spike in the numbers or anything. So I think with WWE, they could probably risk it too, and try that stuff, because I think their audience is going to be what it is, whether they do that or not. So it'd be worth it for them, especially, with how everything is backed by the network anyway, to try some new stuff like that. I wouldn't mind seeing that.
But I'll tell you what, man, going back to the old Mid-South Power Pro days, because you get that out of Watts. Sometimes there'd be a match in the ring. Sometimes there'd be a promo. You never knew what they was going to hit you with. And again, those are days long gone by. But, when you turn something on, you don't know what to expect other than badass wrestling and the shoot aspect of it. It's like, I'd like to see it presented in a serious fashion, fines being levied against the boys when they do something wrong. Treat it like a shoot. We know it's a work, but treat it like a shoot. So going back to Guardians of the Galaxy, if I'm watching that, I can totally just dive in and, hey, man, I'm playing by their rules. I'm with them hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah. That's how, just imagine how ridiculous that movie is and you buy it. There's a little talking tree in there that only says 3 words and you buy it as a character. But that too's on the fans. At some point we just got to, as fans, stop asking questions. Stop asking so many questions. Just sit back and enjoy it. When I watch a horror movie, I really don't believe that there's ghosts in there, but I can take myself out of that and watch it for what it is. I would like to see more of the, treat it serious too. And I know being the comedy guy, that might shock some people, but like I said earlier, I love that part. And comedy doesn't, Conor McGregor's a funny guy. He can go out there and talk. Then when he gets in the match, you beat ass. It doesn't mean that the whole entire show is all serious. A lot of Flair's promos to me were just entertaining as hell, but when he got in the ring, it was serious business. So I think when people hear more seriousness, they think we mean the entire show and you can't have any fun.
No.
Because there are some of the old school guys that say funny ain't money. That is a total damn lie. Funny has made a lot of money. It made me personally a lot of money. Comedy is huge in Hollywood. There's a lot of comedians make a lot of money. Bad funny doesn't make money, and that's the difference. Nothing is worse in any form of entertainment than somebody trying to be funny and their ass just ain't.
Well, I mean, but also you can have too much funny. I mean, because if you look at a pro wrestling, you're just based on the subject of its nature, or the nature of its subject, rather, you know, it's serious by nature. So, yeah, you can have a specific amount of comedy. But so if you go to comedy, and you got too much serious, well, a little bit of serious and some comedy can work, but too much serious is going to kill the comedy. So there has to be a balance. So, yeah, so funny can be money, but it just has to be in the right dose. I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that's why it's called comic relief. You know, when you throw it just a little bit in there to break the tension. You know, I mean, your promos were entertaining, and I mean, they were kick ass, but sometimes I would laugh out loud. You know, even the Austin 316, you know, I just whip your ass. You know, I mean, I laughed at that. That was, you know, it wasn't funny like slapstick Three Stooges, right, but it was something that was so damn cool. I did laugh, you know, and then you go kick somebody's ass. You know, so it's just, it has to be used sporadically. I mean, if you read a Stephen King book, he'll throw a joke in there every now and then. You know, you get your little smirk, get your little giggle, and the next thing you know, somebody's getting murdered. You're right back to the serious shit, you know. It's a very important writing element, and people that, if you actually take writing classes, that they will learn that, and it has to be used sparingly, and the vice versa. Like you just said, you know, you can watch any sitcom, and every now and then a sitcom will get serious, and it'll mean something, but they can't do it all the time because you're watching a comedy for a reason because you want to laugh. You know, Brooklyn Nine-Nine just did that. They tackled the race issue a couple weeks ago, and it was really well done. But then the next week they went right back to their normal routine of, you know, a lot of jokes and a lot of laughs. So you're right. It works both ways on that one.
Hey, man, when you look back, now that you're where you're at in the business and you do your thing with TNA, but looking back to your whole career of watching or life of watching the business, what are your favorite moments or different time periods? Is there anything that, like, for me, people say, hey, man, you know, man, love the Attitude Era and all that stuff. Well, what was your favorite stuff? Hey, I dug the Attitude Era. I love what we were doing. Okay, that was me at my peak from a personal standpoint. And, dude, you know that whole locker room was full of superstars. Everybody had a gimmick or everybody was over. But my favorite stuff is stuff from the mid-'80s, NWA, Mid-South Power Pro, early 80s, mid-'80s, WCCW in Dallas. I mean, that, and I didn't really get WWF back in the day, but that serious stuff is what I dug, man. Man, when the Four Horsemen jumped on Dusty, what was it, the gas station, and broke his leg?
Yeah.
I mean, boy.
And they shut his arm in the door that one time.
Yeah.
The car door.
God dang. You talk about believable heels with heat. And then Four Horsemen, dude, you respected the hell out of them or you feared them. And they was going to beat the trash out of anybody and everybody. Strength in numbers. Everybody was over. Everybody could work their ass off. And like the baby faces, you know, like Magnum TA, just classic, good-looking dude, good body. You know, he'd fire up. Nikita Koloff. Those guys, to me, like, that's my favorite era of pro wrestling. I love what we did. But for you, what did you really gravitate towards? Or who were your heroes?
That was me. Same way. You know, I went to my first live show in 1979, and the main event was Dusty and Billy Graham. So, I mean, I grew up on NWA Mid-Atlantic. You know, I'm North Carolina, so it was all NWA Mid-Atlantic. I never even saw WWF until I was a freshman in high school. It just wasn't on. You know, I think there were little moments whenever Vince had a TBS, but I must have missed that little bit of era because that was only a short window, and, you know, NWA got it back. Or when they became Georgia Championship Wrestling, or took over that channel. But yeah, I was a Horseman guy. You know, like I said earlier about Jerry Briscoe, who I just saw Sunday, ran into him at the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. My coach got inducted, and Jerry was there. He's at all the amateur wrestling stuff. Him and Jack were the first two people I ever hated in my life, and I told Jerry that when I started working. I mean, when they turned on Jay Youngblood and Rick Steamboat, man, I was just a young kid. I hated them with every bone in my body. You know, and as a babyface fan, you know, Ricky and Robert, you know, man, I was such a mark for them, such a mark for Dusty, Magnum, that whole run started to become, you know, when the Horsemen started doing their run, you know, I think that led a lot of guys to becoming heel fans. You know, Arn to me was kind of the original first tweener for me, because Arn would do cool shit. You know, he was at the spine buster, gourd buster, and DDT, and his partner would do the dirty shit. You know, Tully would come in. Tully was the one you hated. You know, Arn was kind of cool because Arn would do badass shit. And the same thing when he teamed with Ole. Like, nobody liked Ole, especially if you ever met him. You know, if you ever met him, you definitely probably had a bad time. But you know, so Arn was kind of he was the one, you know, that kind of got me to really liking some of what would be considered heel work, you know. And
okay, so you liked Arn Tully better than Arn Ole?
Yeah.
See, for me, I'm
of the Horseman.
I'm other way. I like Arn Ole because Ole was that bully heel, and it's funny because a lot of people disliked Ole, and I can only say, me and him always got along. And when I say that, it wasn't like we were always talking because, man, I was just stunning Steve there. I wasn't nobody. But he was always good to me, and he would give me some advice every here and there. So I got to say, that guy, hands-on, treated me real fair. I know he got a bad rap towards the end. They said the business passed him by or whatever. I don't know. But it's just as far as, let me take that out of the equation, just watching them. Like when I go watch those old Rock and Roll Express matches with Arn and Ole, you know, Ole would get in there. He hardly wouldn't bump. And there's one match I'll send you I'll forward it to you. But just that one, Ricky would go out there and he'd work Ole's beak, his nose. That was the only way he could really affect Ole. He did a couple of leg kicks, but he just those beautiful right hands he would throw right at Ole's beak. And then finally, you know, and Ole, I think, had a grudge against working with him for a while because they were smaller guys. But I just like that bully aspect that Ole brought to the ring. And like you said, Arn was the movement guy. If there needed to be a transition or a shift or some pickup in the motion of the match, here comes Arn to call a couple of high spots, pop them, you know, send in the heater, tag in Ole. And with all due respect to Tully was very, very good. But that Arn-Ole combination for me was tough to beat.
Yeah, I agree with you. But and go back earlier to what I said about real heels. That was Ole. I mean, but today, would Ole be rewarded for that work? Because nobody's going to be buying Ole Anderson merchandise, so the writers are going to think he's not over. He's not going to do catchphrases, so the writers are going to think he's not over. He's not going to be out there bumping for Neville or me or anybody else. So the match ain't going to get no stars in whatever review comes up. So that's why that type of stuff, that's kind of why that's going out of the way. But it was because you hated Ole, and that kind of made you, but you wanted to like the Horseman, but you hated Ole. But that made Arn and Flair kind of cool. And those were your tweeners.
God dang. But
you hate it.
But here's the thing. It's interesting because back in the day in the Tennessee territory when I broke in, you know, the baby faces, we'd have intermission. All the baby faces go out there and sell their gimmicks, pictures and stuff like that. Dude, I didn't have no pictures. I wasn't over. I was new to the territory. And so I wasn't making no dough off that. But what was customary for the boys back in the day, if you was over babyface and you was out there selling gimmicks at intermission at halftime, then you would give the heel that you was working with,
exactly.
like you know, something like, I'm just making this up because I don't remember the number, but like 20% of your take, because you're in the program with that heel, and due to him and him taking bumps for you and making you look good and getting you over and selling for you, you're gonna get part of his cut because you're out here able to sell his gimmicks because of him. You remember that?
Yep. Yeah. It was like that when I was doing, when I broke in, you know, in 91 was when I had my first match. Heels wouldn't be out there doing any of that. You know, now everybody's out there. It's a flea market at indie shows now. Right. And it's a t-shirt business. And I mean, and what are you to say? This is how these guys make money. I mean, if you look at
it's a hustle.
Kids, those young buck kids are making a killing. So I can't sit there and say, hey, man, y'all, you know, if y'all heels, y'all need to be in the back when they got a line 300 people deep waiting to buy their shirt. So it's just a weird thing now. But, you know, but it would be nice if they had legit heels that, like, the promoter paid them more. But, you know, most of the promoters today, like on the indies that I run in, they never really had a career where they were had any degree of success. So they don't really know this. They don't even understand what I say sometimes when I say the real heel. I have to use my Star Wars analogy. That's what helps. You know, I went Silence of the Lambs with you because, you know, you're a little bit easier to talk to. But with the Star Wars people, I'll say, who was the heel? If they say Darth Vader, I'm like, who hated Darth Vader? He's the most popular character in the franchise. the Emperor was the heel. He was the guy you hated. Skywalker was the white meat babyface. Vader was the tweener.
I have never heard it broke down like that.
Vader he was selling merch. There's way more merch being sold than Skywalker merch.
Well, it was interesting because he was that heel that you respected him and you feared him at the same time. But the guy he was so bad, he was cool.
Yeah.
To your point. Yeah. But you're right. Yeah. And I never even thought about the Emperor being the heel. I guess I do now. But I looked at Vader as being the heel, but he had that cool factor to him.
Yeah, he had a big cool. He was like the original cool heel, you know. I mean, people have Vader shirts. You know, I never played with my Luke Skywalker little action figure.
Dude, ain't nobody rocking us. Ain't nobody walking the streets. Ain't no tough guy walking the streets with the Skywalker shirt on. He gonna have on a Vader shirt. Hey, here's the thing. Talking about real heat. I know you didn't see this, but it was on the NXT pay-per-view, so I'm going to recommend you watch it. DIY. What's it? Do it yourself. Tommaso Ciampa. I mess a guy's name up all the time. I botch it. Johnny Gargano go up there and they have a tag team. It's a ladder match against Authors of Pain. And so they go out there. They have a pretty damn good. I mean, the match is pretty good, but it's kind of, it's got some clunks in it. You can kind of see, what's up. And so Authors of Pain is still a bit on the green side, but I think those kids have a lot of upside. So they get through the match, and Authors of Pain go over. And, I think those guys got a bright future. They get out of the picture, and then Johnny Gargano and Ciampa's in the middle of the ring. And, the crowd gives them a standing O. You know how good that Chicago crowd is. They get them a standing O. They acknowledge, soak it all in. They go up on the ramp, and all of a sudden, Tommaso turns on Gargano and throws him into the set. Just starts demolishing the kid, hits him with his patented knee, and then knees him over off into the damn desk. Then, he gives him whatever that inverted gimmicky driver he does on him. And, dude, you should have seen the crowd. Their faces, everybody had their hands on their heads. Their mouths were wide open. There was legit heat on that, and people were definitely just totally shocked and caught off guard because these two guys are a terrific tag team. Those guys really work well together. There's good chemistry there, and they've been through thick and thin. And so now for Tommaso to turn on him like that, it's going to be interesting to see the story on the backside. Again, the match got him a standing O. I thought the match was okay, but the heel turn at the end, it's probably about as much heat as I've seen in a long time. I thought Tommaso, the way they had it played out, he kind of just hangs around and he's sitting in the back. And from a TV standpoint, the fact that he's kind of looming over and Johnny Gargano's still in cell mode, I wish Tommaso would have just got out of the picture and left. But if you see it, I want you to break it down for me and call me back because it was some pretty damn good heat. You didn't happen to catch that or hear about it?
No. Like I had the, like I said, I had a show on Saturday and I had that National Wrestling Hall of Fame dinner on Sunday. So I was kind of preoccupied with that. And then I watched Backlash though, so I didn't get the chance to.
What did you think about Backlash?
But what I saw, I liked. I didn't get to see a lot of it for some reason. I either watch it on my iPad or through Xbox, and my iPad was dead, so I was watching it through the Xbox, and it was just lagging really bad. So I don't know if maybe my box might be old or something, but I was having real difficulties, and I got frustrated with that pretty quick. I saw the tag match. I saw bits and pieces of the girls' match, and the girls' match was okay. I don't like that Charlotte is just white meat babyface again. She did so well, or at least in that match, that's kind of how she was presented. She was such a great heel. So I would like to see her keep some of that, at least that attitude, and not just be, Ricky Morton. And she wasn't quite Ricky Morton, but it was a far cry from what she was doing as a heel. And then the only thing I saw then was the main event, Randy and Jinder Mahal. So was there more heat at the heel turn on NXT than when Jinder won the belt?
Dude, I didn't see Jinder win the belt. I had things going on just like you did, so I saw the start of the match, and then I got distracted. I had to go do some stuff, and then I turned my computer on. I was watching it because I had paused it, but then my computer, the screen went funny, and it went to current time or like real time, and so I was like, God dang, I just missed the entire match. I'm watching Jinder Mahal hold up the belt, and so I missed the finish. What was the finish?
Randy was beating up those two kids that
Yeah, the Singh brothers.
I know. The Singh brothers. He was whooping their ass, and used that as a distraction. And Jinder came in, but it was pretty well done. There's going to be something you pop on if you haven't seen it online. Randy goes to belly to back one of them kids on the table, and he tosses his ass, man. He tosses him head over heels, and Randy even turns around. And he's got this look on his face like, I might have just killed that little dude, you know. And it's hysterical, you know. But I guess the guy's okay. I haven't heard anything bad. But I thought it was pretty well done. You know, I didn't know which way they were going, and that's what I love about wrestling. I love when I can't predict who's the winner's going to be, and that's one of the things too that bothers me about any show. If I know who the winner's going to be, there's something that's just missing, and I think that applies to everybody, whether they realize it or not. And that's why MMA to us, as if you're an MMA fan, and I think that you are, because you don't know. Because you don't know who's going to win, and there's no storylines there, so you really don't know what they're going to do. So you can't apply that knowledge sometimes, that implied knowledge that we have, because we generally know how storylines work. You can't apply that to MMA, and so you don't know who the winner's going to be. So there's this level of excitement that's there. I love seeing that in wrestling too. I love not knowing who's going to win. You know, let me see what happens. Can they work me? Can they get me? And if they can, I'll applaud the hell out of it. When Goldberg smashed Brock in 2 minutes or whatever, I lost my mind. I thought that was just awesome, you know, because I never would have predicted that. I didn't think that was going to happen. It didn't happen. I was like, oh my God, you know, it's like being a kid again. You know, like when Ronnie Garvin beat Ric Flair and then the TV went off and, you know, we got a new world champion and I had to wait all week to see if that shit really happened, you know. So I love the unpredictability of stuff like that. So, and I like Jinder, man. I can tell he's working hard. You know, I liked him back in the day, and actually before he re-signed with WWE, he came down to TNA for a visit, and I tried to talk. You know, not that we had a deep discussion, but I went and endorsed him to the higher ups, and I thought he would be a good guy to bring in. But I think a WWE offer came like right away, and of course he made probably what was financially a much better decision, especially considering now.
Well,
but
dude,
I thought it was good, man.
How long has that guy been around? Because I've been following what he's been doing lately, but I don't know anything about him other than the fact I've seen a clip of him and a couple other WWE guys working out at the gym with a buddy of mine, C.T. Fletcher, and he's got a great look, great body. How is his work level?
I don't know how long year-wise he's been around. I know he came in and was kind of doing a gimmick similar to what he's doing now, but really a lot less toned down, a lot less charisma, and a lot less put into it. And then he got stuck in a rut with a gimmick called the three-man band. Him, Heath Slater, and Drew Galloway, who was Drew McIntyre at the time when he was in WWE. And that was a little funny little gimmick, but they just kind of got, you know, it was a plateau thing. There was never going to be any upward advancement. It was kind of just coasting. And then I guess he was let go, and he didn't sit on his ass, man. He went and worked, and I mean, his work's good. There's definitely things that can be improved upon, but I think you can watch him and see that there's something there. You know, there's an energy to him. His promos need to get a little better. He's got good facials, but he goes to the angry face entirely too fast.
Yep.
You know, he's in Hulk rage face way too much. It doesn't develop slowly. But that'll get better. You know, your facials always get better with age. You know, wrinkles help tell a story, you know. So that's why the best actors are generally the older ones. They just tell better stories with their face because you can see, you know, what they've been through. So that'll get better, but I like him. And I like the name the Maharaja. That's just
that's got cool factor written all over it. Plus, but if you play that with arrogance, it works for you. But, dude, down the road, I mean, I think that spells money. I think the kid's got a great look. Like you said, he's got the great facials. And as you know, dude, you got to bring a few things to the table, whether it's from appearance, size, looks, you know, handsome, ugly, or just a flat out badass worker, just unbelievable talker. You know, this kid has bits and pieces of the things, you know, and all of them are like, can be graded on a scale of 1 to 10. Hey, what you bring to the table? But, you know, at first, one of the big things you got to bring, you know, for Vince to get in that big spot, size helps.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it just does. It does.
It's just presentation too, you know. I mean, you know, it's like I don't really get too disappointed because I try not to judge guys at an indie level too much. You know, when people were like out of shape in WWE, or when I was there and when I thought they weren't good when I was there, that would piss me off because I always felt you should be good to even get there. I always believe, like, if this person isn't good, why the hell are they here? It would drive me nuts sometimes. And it didn't do me any favors, but I always wanted to be good, and I want all my matches to be good. So when I'm out there with somebody that sucked, and I was like, why is this guy here? That would bother me. On the indies, I'm a little bit more, open-minded because, they got room to grow, and some of these guys are beginners. So, even then, when I see somebody not in shape, I'm just like, why? If I'm in here in a cape and a mask and I look more intimidating than you do, that's not a good thing. Like, I'm in here with all these young guys, and like, they look like, some of them don't look good. And I'm like, man, it's still a visual medium. What we do is still a visual business. And even if you don't make it, you know what? You're still going to be a healthier person. There's no reason not to look good.
Hey, let me ask you a question. You brought up that part of that stable that he was in, 3 whatever. So that reminds me about that thing that you was in back in it. What was it, WCW days, 3 count?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that WCW?
Yeah, WCW.
Dude, whatever happened to your former guys?
Well, Shannon's down in Florida. Shannon's still working. I actually just saw him WrestleMania weekend.
He opened up a wrestling school back in the day. Is he still doing that?
He did when I think he was in Chicago, and then he had one, maybe he lived in North Carolina, then he moved to Chicago when he was, he married Julie, the seamstress girl from, and so now they live in Florida. So he's kind of doing his thing. He's starting to doing a lot more wrestling stuff now because we've been talking a lot more lately. Evan, the other guy, he got out completely. He doesn't do anything. I think he'll come to a show every now and then. We did actually an appearance together about a year, maybe 2 years ago now. And I went out and I worked as the Hurricane, short match, choke slam, gaga shit. And then Shannon and Evan came out and we played the old song and we danced. And, the fans had a pretty good time with it. So that too was I didn't grow up listening to damn boy band music, but it was a gimmick presented to me. And you want to do it? I'm like, oh, sure, I'll give it a shot. Same thing with the Hurricane. I never thought I'd be in the cape and mask, but they asked me to do it, and I said, I'll give it my best.
Well, like somebody basically they're giving you, hey man, here, we're offering you an opportunity to do something, So yeah, it's like you got to have an open mind. But it's like when Vince called me up and said, hey man, why don't you come in and be the ringmaster? And I'm thinking, between you and me sitting on the phone up there, man, boy, it sounds like shit. But I need a job.
Hey, but to your defense, it was shit.
It was bad, but I was sitting there thinking, okay, I got a wife, kid, I got a house on 10 acres, ECW once a week, and I love Paul, and I appreciate him giving me an opportunity, but dude, you can't pay a whole lot of bills working ECW one day a week, and I'd done my time there, and Paul had taught me a lot, and he helped me with my promos, and I put over some guys over there in matches, and it's time for me to go, and so when I rolled up in there, I was like, I'm gonna give a ringmaster everything I got. But, when I came up with the idea for Stone Cold, that's when I knew I had a good idea. But, it's just like I said, an opportunity. And that's the thing that Vince always says. He goes, Steve, I give people opportunities. And I was like, man, you're the one that makes everybody stars. You're the guy that picks who gets over and who doesn't. But then after being in the trenches, you find out. He does give guys opportunities, and you can either swing, or you can hit a foul ball, you can hit a single, double, triple, homer, you can hit a grand slam, and you can strike out. But the man does what he says. He gives opportunities, and so it's like 3 count, Hurricane, ringmaster, whatever. Take a chance.
Yeah, no doubt. That Hurricane thing. When they, like I said, especially at that time with all the WCW guys there, like, we were all clamoring for TV time. I mean, you were safe, of course, but nobody else, especially nobody on that WCW side, was safe. That damn gimmick that invasion angle was going to hell, and we all knew it. And not knowing how long that was going to last. So when they came to me with that, I was like, I'll do my best. And then just looking at the landscape, I mean, and I was actually talking to Jerry about, I had this almost exact same conversation with Jerry on Sunday, when he was asking me, because he didn't really know about my amateur background, because I couldn't really show it as a Hurricane, because, I'm in cape and mask. I can't be out there single high crotching people, because it would be a disconnect. And so he was like, well, I didn't know all that. And I was like, well, but when I would look at the landscape of what we had then, and they didn't have anybody like the Hurricane. I mean, we had Kurt Angle. Like, I mean, I loved amateur wrestling, but Kurt Angle was on the show. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, and he did pretty good in terms of, that amateur wrestler stuff. He did pretty good, and then you look at, Sugar Shane or who I was on the indies, I was a little ass kicker, but man, we got Stone Cold on there. We got the greatest ass kicker on the planet. We got the Undertaker. We got all these great personalities and characters, but we don't have somebody like the Hurricane. So that was another reason why I really got so into that character too. I was like, this is how I can stand out more than anything. I can go be just another wrestler and I'll wrestle and have way better matches than I can as the Hurricane, but the Hurricane is going to make me stand out. And when you talk about paying bills, like I said, that those Gregory Helms action figures did not fly off the shelf. Pun intended. Those Hurricane ones did really damn well, Gregory Helms, but Gregory Helms, I was trying to be a legit heel, and I had a conversation with Vince, which I really appreciate, because I told him I don't want merch. So if people are buying my merch, then they're not buying me as a heel. I said, and I asked him, well, can you take care of me on the pay-per-views? Because he was giving me, quite a couple pay-per-view appearances back then. Hurricane, I really didn't do a lot of pay-per-view stuff. I did some, but not as much as I probably should have, or could have, I should say. So he really took care of me on terms of pay-per-view paydays and stuff like that, That money helped fill the void that I got when the merchandise train stopped rolling when I stopped doing it. So, I appreciated that. But I did have that conversation with him. I was like, if they're buying my merch, then they're not booing me.
Hey, man, tell me about your relationship with Vince and talking about the merchandise money, because that's an aspect that I think a lot of people miss out on, the relationship with the old man, or in whatever the case, Triple H now, or whoever's that guy. But a lot of guys are too nervous to talk to the man about money, percentages, royalties, etc. And dude, I always tell people that, but a lot of people and a lot of the boys don't get it. They don't learn the man, they don't learn the system, and they don't end up making money that they could have. Whether you're on top, middle, bottom, there's always more money to be made than what you started at. Mm-hmm. So how did you take that up with the old man? Was that something you were never bashful about?
No, but I picked my spots with him. If I had something to talk to him about, and if it was important, I would watch him during the day. Because Vince is a strange guy. If he's in a good mood, he'll say yes to some dumb shit. And if he's in a bad mood, he'll say no to a great idea. Yeah. So I would just watch him. If he was in a bad mood, they could wait for next week. If he was in a good mood, I'd march right on over. And but yeah, I got in trouble a couple of times, so getting into it with agents. But other than that, we never really had no bad moments or anything. But as far as the merch stuff, when I was talking to him, because I kind of wanted the heel turn a little bit earlier, but the merch was still doing okay, so I wrote it out. But they kind of were getting lost with what to do with me, and they were just starting to use me to get other guys over. And I understand you have to do that, but you can only do that to me so much. And, I remember talking to him. I was like, I get that I don't need to win every match, but my character is that I'm not a superhero. It's that I believe that I am. I believe that I have these powers that I don't really have. And if I'm out there getting my ass tore up every week, why do I believe that? That doesn't make any kind of sense whatsoever.
Well, that makes you dumb.
Yeah, that just makes me an idiot, And I was like, and also, I don't want to devalue myself to a point where I'm no longer a commodity. And those are almost my exact words. Like, I understand I'm a product here. And, if I devalue myself that I'm no longer a commodity, then I'm not worth anything to you. And my merch sales did start to go down. So that's when people, whenever they throw that wins and losses don't matter, I don't believe that to be true. I think individual wins and losses might not matter. But overall, the collective, they do, because how the fans perceive you matters. If they perceive you to be a loser, they're not going to invest in you. If they perceive you to be somebody that's doing good, doing cool shit, that's going to entice them to buy your merch and stuff like that. Because I definitely saw a dip in my merch once I started putting over every jackass from OVW that they would bring up and try to experiment with. I definitely saw that. And I explained that, and I told him, and he knew, he pays attention to who's selling what, who's moving merch and who's not. And two, that was like, well, why don't we just have a break? Let me try to do this and go, show the people the other aspect of what I can do in the ring, and let's just see. And I can always go back to being the Hurricane. I knew that, and of course, there's very little about the business that Vince doesn't know, so he knew that too. So we finally decided to run with it. But I think if you talk to him, and you better know what you're talking about. There, you can't go in there with a half-ass conversation. You need to have this shit put together in your head. You need to try to, as best you can, be prepared for what he may or may not say back. And just kind of shoot straight with him. You know, he doesn't like weak guys. You know, he doesn't like people, like I said, that don't know what the fuck you're talking about. He'll appreciate it. Even if you're wrong, if you go in there with some conviction, I think he respects that a little bit.
Yeah, you better go in there with a game plan, or if you don't, first of all, you know, just like you would read him with respect to approaching him, hey, he's having a bad day, it'll wait till next week. Hey, he's in a good mood, let's go get him right now. Dude, he's reading you as well. And if he sees that you've got a 101 plan rather than a 201, a 301, or an advanced plan with many different ways that you can come out of this and still, you know, get what you want out of it, he's reading you. I'll never forget this. I don't remember if you was in a company or not. I'm sure you were. But a particular individual stood up. It was in the cafeteria. In some town, it was a Monday Night Raw. Someone stood up, and they asked Vince a question in front of all the boys. And Vince addressed the person, answered the question in front of everybody, and I was sitting there watching. And Vince totally hoodwinked the person that asked the question. It was a total snow job, and the person shook their head and sat back down. Dude, the whole room knew that Vince just smoked the person that asked the question. But because the person didn't have the backup question or say, hey, you didn't really answer my question and call him on it, Vince got away with rerouting them, and everybody just went about their business. I was like, wow, dude just took that cat to school in front of everybody. Because you've been in there with meetings with him before you got up to speed with him. Dude, he would reroute somebody, and it was a famous story from as soon as you go into WWF, everybody's heard the story. Man, you'll get in there with Vince, all of a sudden you ask him a question, you're mad about how many days you're working or the amount of money you're getting paid, and all of a sudden you talk with Vince for 10 minutes, you walk out with a smile on your face, you walk 10 feet down the hallway, and you realize you didn't get nothing accomplished. Dude, you should have seen the master at work. But everybody knew, other than the person that asked that question, they just got snowed.
Yeah. I'd already heard some of those stories going in, so I was as prepared as I could be. But I think even as prepared as you can be, there's always an element of surprise with Vince. And he definitely is an intimidating, powerful personality, and I could see people caving under the pressure of things that he says pretty easily. And I guarantee you, that question that whoever asked in the thing, Vince has probably been asked that question or something similar a bunch of times. So you got to imagine that his defense is, you know, he's got a lot of experience in the defense department when it comes to being attacked or, you know, surprised by questions like that. He's a hard guy to catch off guard.
Yeah, but you got to understand, just to your point, you know, his grandfather was a promoter. His father was a promoter. He's a promoter. Dude, I think Shane's fourth generation. So anyway, Vince is third generation promoter. So, dude, you know, he's seen and done it all with respects of nut jobs that come through there. You know the personalities of the boys. They're some of the greatest guys on earth and gals in the business. But also there's some very interesting, you know, people with different mental makeups. You know, you've heard some of the stories of guys, you know, holding Vince down. I mean, you know, strangling him. You know, that old Nails story, whatever happened on that little endeavor. But, you know, different people holding Vince up. So, I mean, that guy's been around the horn more than a few times. And so, like, he's such a master psychologist, psychiatrist. It's unbelievable. But I've always said, and just like you said, talk with Vince about wins or losses or merch or, you know, royalties or take care of on pay-per-view because I'm going to be a straight uphill. So I want to make sure I make the money. You got to learn the business aspects of the business because in anything you do, Shane, you want to make as much money as you can. And we've all said a million times, oh, man, I can't believe we're getting paid to do this. I do this for free. Yeah, I would. But I can make a lot of money doing it, so that's what I need to do.
Yeah, that's a lot better option. Yeah. One of the things that kind of hurt me financially and being more aggressive with the money thing is just I'm just a really simple person with my needs. I almost wish that I were a greedier person, that I would want, you know, I don't give a shit about fast cars, fancy cars. I got a nice truck because I needed a tax write-off. I didn't give a shit about none of that, you know, just I'm a really kind of a simple person. I'm a reader. You know, you give me a bunch of books, I'm just as happy as anything. Not to say I haven't blown some damn money. I've probably blown it on nightlife more than anything. You know, I definitely had that Ric Flair aspect of me that, you know, I'll go to the club and it's just going. But, you know, What I have right now, man, I'm just happy as a clam, you know, and I didn't make anywhere near Steve Austin money, but I'm super happy with what I had and what I made. But if I would have been a little bit greedy and a little bit more aggressive, I definitely could have made even more than I did. But I didn't have that need, you know, which is lucky, you know. I mean, that's a blessing for me, too, so.
Hey, let's give big ups to TrueCar for being a loyal sponsor of the Steve Austin Show. With TrueCar, 60 seconds is all you'll need to get an offer for your car. And the amount of time it takes to floss your teeth, pet your dog, or do a few push-ups, you can get a true cash offer. Best of all, you can do it from your smartphone or even from your home. Just go to TrueCar and simply enter your license plate number and watch how your car's details pop up. Answer a few questions and you'll get an accurate true cash offer from a local TrueCar certified dealer. It's that easy. After that, you can bring your car in and they'll check it out with you. Together, you can ask questions and get the answers you need so there's no surprises. Then simply leave with your check or trade in your car for a new ride. So when you're ready to experience a better way to sell or trade in your car, check out TrueCar today. True cash offer not available in all areas. And hey man, while you're online, you should get your car insurance figured out. Go to geico.com and in 15 minutes you can be saving 15% or more on car insurance. That's right. Save hundreds of dollars on car insurance at geico.com. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today. All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in the sunset. Hey, don't forget to rate and review the Steve Austin Show on Apple Podcasts and tell your friends to check us out. If you want to reach me here on the podcast, send an email to questions@steveaustinshow.com. Also, the best damn IPA on the planet is Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company, making its way to the East Coast. You can find it at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in Cali. If you ain't in Cali, you could be SOL. We made a shipment to the East Coast. There's more coming that way. Also, looking for expansion in 2020. Details as soon as I know more. Don't forget, the King of Attitude shirts are available now at Pro Wrestling Tees store. Check out ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin for those shirts, along with all of my other Broken Skull Ranch apparel. If you're looking for a badass knife, I got two for you from Cold Steel Knives, the Broken Skull and the Working Man. Check them out at my Amazon store. Best price on both knives, Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin. I would like to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, especially Zoro.com, Borderlands, Trojan, Geico, TrueCar, and BetOnline.ag. That's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. Please support them because they support us. If you need more info on my sponsors, check out the show description to this episode for details. If you see me out in the woods, you will proudly see me riding a Kawasaki. Until next time, folks, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
Download new episodes of Steve Austin Unleashed every Thursday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.